I was taken against my will and forced to work as a servant for a wealthy man in Thailand, and this is the story of how I survived. 7 years ago, I went backpacking across Asia on my own, moving from country to country with the confidence of someone who had never experienced true danger. Bangkok was supposed to be my second to last stop. Vibrant, loud, full of life. I had no idea that a single encounter in a busy night market would change everything. I saw him while browsing jewelry stalls, a striking European man who spoke English fluently and carried himself with charming confidence. When he asked if he could take me out for dinner, his charisma disarmed me. I said yes, believing it was just another spontaneous travel moment. That evening, he swept me off my feet. He talked about living in the U.S., not far from where I lived, and said he was traveling through Thailand just like me. After dinner, he took me to a popular nightclub, and everything seemed perfect right until the end of the night when he called a taxi for both of us. I didn't suspect a thing when he offered me a bottle of water during the ride. Minutes after drinking it, everything dissolved into darkness. When I opened my eyes, I was lying on a cold floor in a windowless room. The air was damp and heavy, and a single dim bulb barely lit the space. I realized immediately that the place wasn't a hotel, wasn't a hostel, wasn't anything safe. It looked like a basement or worse. I screamed for help. I pounded on the walls. No one answered. Hours later, a tall, slim man entered. He wasn't the same man from the night before. He silently placed food and water on the floor. When I asked where the man who brought me here was, he didn't respond. He simply turned around and left. The silence that followed was suffocating. I ate because I didn't know when they would feed me again. The next day, several other men came in. They examined me, coldly, silently, as if evaluating something rather than speaking to a person. They said nothing to me, only to each other in a language I didn't understand. I assumed it was Thai. When they finally left, I felt hollow, alone, terrified. Days blurred into each other. With no windows, I lost all sense of time. The only thing that changed was the arrival of food and water. I began hallucinating shadows in the corners, convinced I saw faces watching me. At night, at least, I think it was night, I dreamed of home, only to wake up to the same nightmare. I blamed myself for accepting the dinner invitation, for trusting a stranger, for not being more careful. One day, the slim man returned with only a glass of water. No food. I drank it. Hours later, my world went dark again. When I opened my eyes, I was lying on a luxurious silk bed. The room was massive, with classical paintings on the walls and a lit fireplace. Sitting in a chair across from me was a man I'd never seen before. I bolted out of bed and ran to the door. Locked. I looked for any possible exit. There wasn't one. The man approached me slowly. His English was broken, but I understood enough. He said he had acquired me and that I would work in his home. He insisted I wasn't a prisoner, but a servant. I would clean, cook, and eventually join the other girls living in the mansion. He spoke as though all of this was perfectly normal. There were 5 other girls already there. They acted strangely calm, almost devoted to him. Either they were excellent actresses or something had conditioned them to accept everything without question. I quickly realized resisting might put me in danger, so I followed along. Weeks turned into months. I worked every day, cooking, cleaning, organizing. The other girls moved like clockwork, smiling in practiced ways that didn't reach their eyes. When we were alone, I tried asking them if they wanted to leave, but each insisted they were grateful to be there. Their words seemed rehearsed, as though memorized. Over time, the wealthy man began favoring me. He requested me specifically for tasks, serving meals, washing clothes, cleaning his study. It caused tension with the other girls. I could hear them whispering about me behind closed doors. One evening, he called me into his library. As I dusted the shelves, I felt his eyes on me. He handed me a book and told me I should read it, a strange gesture, considering none of the maids were allowed books, music, or TV. It felt like a test. Eventually, I gained access to his private study, a place no other maid could enter. That room became my opportunity. One night, while dusting his desk, I opened a drawer and found a cell phone. At first, I panicked. Thinking it was bait, I left it untouched. The next day, it was still there. The day after that, still there. On the fifth day, desperation outweighed fear. I opened it. There was no passcode. The signal was weak, barely a flicker of one bar. I moved around the room, searching for a better connection. Finally, standing on top of the desk, the signal steadied. Hands trembling, I dialed a number, any number from home. Against all odds, someone answered. Hello? Hearing an American voice nearly made my knees buckle. I explained everything, from the night I was drugged to the basement to the mansion. I begged them to track the call. They said they would try. I warned them not to call back. Just then, footsteps approached. I hung up, shoved the phone back where I found it, and tried to clean as if nothing happened. The man entered, smiling calmly, but my heart pounded loudly. I thought he could hear it. I kept working, all while pretending everything was normal. Days passed. Weeks passed. I secretly checked the phone whenever I could. Sometimes the signal allowed me to send a brief message, other times nothing. Then one morning, everything changed. Sirens echoed from outside the mansion. Police vehicles and government officials flooded the property. From a window, I saw men in uniform, some from Thailand, some speaking English. They confronted the wealthy man who angrily insisted everything was legal because he paid us as employees. One officer quietly approached me. "It's time," he whispered. I followed him, barely breathing, afraid the man might try to stop me, but he was too busy arguing with the officials. They escorted me outside. The look the wealthy man gave me as they took me away, shock, betrayal, confusion, burned into my memory. I was placed into a car, rushed to the airport, and flown back to the U.S. As the plane lifted off, I felt an overwhelming mix of relief and fear. I worried about the other girls. I worried about what would happen next. When I landed, government officials guided me to a secure location, where I stayed until I felt stable enough to talk. Reuniting with my family was surreal, like waking up from a dream where the nightmare had nearly swallowed me whole. I kept my story private, away from the news. I wanted healing, not headlines. Today, every sunrise feels like a second chance, and every breath feels like freedom I almost lost forever.